Hi class, this is the last screencast on libel. Previously, we talked about the four elements: publication, identification, defamation, and level of fault, as well as what constitutes a public figure and a public official. So I want to finish this off with defenses, because if you are working for a news medium or for yourself, let's say you have a blog, and somebody claims that they were defamed by your work and they file a case, and it looks like maybe they have all elements: publication, identification, defamation, and level of fault. It doesn't mean that the party's over yet. There are still three defenses that could apply. The first is truth. Truth is a defense. If you say something defamatory about a person and it's true, if you call somebody a thief and they have previously been convicted of theft, well, then it's true. You refer to them as a murderer and they have been convicted of murder, then it's true. If you call them a card-carrying member of the Communist Party and they are in fact members of the Communist Party, then it's true. You can't defame a person with the truth. The second defense is what's called privilege of the reporter. I think your textbook refers to it as qualified privilege. It's the same thing. And simply that means reporters can report things that may be defamatory in nature as long as they are part of a public document or a public meeting, official proceeding, and as long as reporting that information that may appear defamatory is within a reasonable bounds of news gathering. You can't just do that for the sake of poking fun at somebody or trying to destroy their reputation. That would be considered malice. And if a plaintiff can prove malice, that overrides everything. That overrides any defense that you could come up with. So let me give you an example. If you're at a school board meeting and the school board is taking public testimony in order to make a decision whether one of the schools in their district is in big need of repairs. So they're looking at what makes more sense: to put the money into repairing the building and keeping it going for a few more years, or demolishing the building and building a new one. And, there may be arguments on both cases for that. And so they're taking public testimony, and somebody gets up during this public testimony and says, "I know why you school board members want a new building rather than fixing our old one. It's because you're getting kickbacks from the construction company who would build that new building." Well, of course that's defamatory. That's impugning somebody's reputation and essentially accusing them of illegal activity. If they say that during the public meeting, you can report that. Even though it is defamatory, you can report it because it was said in a public meeting, which any member of the public could have been there to hear that. Doesn't get the person who made those comments off the hook, but it gets you, the reporter, off the hook. Now, if that person never said anything during the meeting, and the meeting ended and you're walking out to your car and this person walks up to you and says, "Hey, the reason why the school board officials want to demolish this building is because they're getting kickbacks from the construction company." If you run with that information, then you better hope and pray that you can prove that it's true. Otherwise, you're in trouble, because you will not have privilege of the reporter because you were not in a public meeting and you didn't get that off a public document. Somebody just walked up and told you this. And then finally, another defense is fair comment. You can comment on the performance of someone who is acting in the public interest or in the public eye. So elected officials, public officials, public figures such as stars and artisans and teachers and singers and so forth, sports athletes. You can comment on their performance, and believe me, you can go a long way in making those comments. You can get kind of nasty, but there are guidelines for all of these things. For example, harassment. You can't go so far as to harass a person. There was back when Jackie Kennedy, later Jackie Onassis, the widow of John F. Kennedy, was probably the most sought after person in the news. There was a paparazzi, or better known as stalkerazzi. He specialized in the Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy and the Kennedy children. And he would do stuff where he would follow her. She would go to maybe an art gallery or an antique dealer or something, and he would stake himself out behind something like a telephone pole or a mailbox or something, in between where she was and where she was going. And when she reached a certain spot, he would jump out and yell, "Boo!" And of course she'd be startled, and he'd snap a photo, and then the next week you'd see on the front of the National Geographic picture of Jackie Kennedy looking shocked and startled, and the headline is Jackie O gets message from John F. K from beyond the grave, type of thing. So, they look for the most unflattering photo, and then they make up a story around the photo. And because she's a public figure, there's not a lot she can do about it until it gets to the point of harassment. Ron Galella, this paparazzi, was out one time taking photos, and when the Kennedy kids were horseback riding, and he got too close to the horses when he was taking the photo and spooked the horses. And so she took him to court and got a restraining order where he had to stay a certain distance from the children, from their home, from their schools. So harassment is not tolerated, but you have to go a long way in fair comment for something to be considered harassment. So let me give you one example from these notes here. Back around the turn of the century, and I mean the 19th to the 20th century, there were these sisters who were performers. They were singers. And they were so bad that people, would gather around to listen to them just because they couldn't believe that they were publicly singing so badly. But the sisters didn't know about it. They're kind of like those people on American Idol, where they come out and audition, and in their mind they sound like Beyonce, but outside their mind they sound like stuck pigs. And that's the way the Cherry Sisters, they believed they were good, and evidenced by all the people watching them. They had no idea that all these people were watching them because they were so bad. Anyway, the Des Moines Leader in 1901 wrote this review of their work. Effie is an old jade of 50 summers. Jessie, a frisky filly of 40, and Addie, the flower of the family, a capering monstrosity of 35. Their long, skinny arms, equipped with talons at the extremities, swung mechanically and anon waved frantically at the suffering audience. The mouths of their rancid features opened like caverns, and sounds like the wailing of damned souls issued therefrom. They pranced round the stage with a motion that suggested a cross between the danse du ventre and the foxtrot. Strange creatures with painted faces and hideous mien. Effie is spavined, which is a horse term meaning lame, Addie is stringhalt, another horse term meaning jerky or spasmodic muscles. And Jessie, the only one who showed her stockings, has legs with calves as classic in their outlines as the curves of a broom handle. Well, they sued, and they sued for defamation, and the courts ruled against them, saying, you're public performers, live with it. Nobody's forcing you to go out there and perform in public, so you have to take the good with the bad. I mentioned Carol Barnett here back in the 70s. She sued the National Choir and won. They ran a story that was saying she was drunk in public at a restaurant. And not only was that false, she doesn't even drink, but she was in what do I got here? But she was in not public or performing role at the restaurant. I have no idea I don't know what I was smoking when I wrote that. Anyway, but she proved that she was not drunk. And they thought they were free and clear because she was a public figure, but there is a line that you can cross over even in fair comment. So those are the three defenses.